I met a priest once who had worked many years in Lebanon, and he told us this story. He told me this story. Lebanon, as you know, was a country that suffered a civil war for many years. And he was in his parish one day, and someone knocked at the door. He opened the door. There was this elderly, middle-aged to elderly lady, and she said, "Father, please go to this house." And she handed him a paper with an address, and she said, "Please go here because someone is dying and he needs last rites." And so the father took his bicycle and went to the place. It was an apartment building, and the apartment number was also listed on that piece of paper she gave him. And so he knocked on the door, and this fairly young man in his perhaps late 20s opened up and said, "Yes, Father, can I help you? I heard that someone is dying." He said, "No, I live alone here. There is one who's dying." And so he said, "Well, this lady came to me, and here's the paper." He said, "Well, maybe she got the apartment number mixed up." So he said, "I'll help you." And they went together, knocking on every door in the apartment building. And they couldn't find anyone who was dying. Everyone, no one's here. And so then the man said, "Father, why don't you come in, have a cup of tea, and just rest after about half an hour knocking on people's doors." And obviously the lady got not the apartment number mixed up, but maybe the number of the building, but there are just too many buildings. We can't go knocking on every door in the whole complex. So they're having tea, they start talking, and the man starts to tell Father a little bit about his life, and he says, "I'm Catholic, and my mother was very pious, and she always took me to church, but then she died several years ago, and I've sort of fallen away from the faith." And he started telling the priest his life story. And the priest listens, and at the end he says, "Look, now you've told me your story, why don't you tell it to God? Would you like to have confession?" So the man says, "Yes, confession, absolution. The priest is leaving, stay in touch, come and help out in the parish, begin your Christian life again, etc., etc." He leaves the building, back on his bicycle, going back towards the parish, and the sirens sound for a bombing raid. And so he ducks into one of the closer buildings, goes down into the basement. There is the bombing. He comes out, and the building that he had been in had been bombed. And he goes with other people to try and find survivors, and they find the body of this young man who he had just been with, who had died in the bombing raid. And around this man's neck was a chain with a locket. And the priest opens the locket, and it was written there, "My dearest mother," and the picture of the lady who had come to the priest in the parish and knocked at the door. What does this mean? This means that this lady, either in purgatory or in heaven, was praying for her son, and God, knowing that it was the moment of death for this boy, allowed the mother to go and knock on the door.